Here we are at episode 64 of the Trash Talk Business Podcast. I'm Andy Weins. He's Casey Bubba Lawrence. We're here to talk about growing, scaling, building your junk removal dream. Whether you're rolling in dumpsters or trash cans on an apartment complex, hell, you can be broker and trash and learn from us. We are here to grow, scale, and build that dream. Casey, what are we talking about today?
And today we have a great guest. His name's Nick, and we've actually talked before on the phone. He's out of NorCal, Northern California, and he's going to share with us a little bit about himself, what he does, and what he likes about the junk removal space. So yeah, Nick, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've been a long-time listener, and I actually make my crew listen to you guys all the time. It's pretty cool. I'm excited to surprise them in a couple weeks when this goes live.
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
So, real quick, I just want to point something out. Well, most of our listeners are listeners, right? The video version more act on like YouTube Shorts or see us on LinkedIn. For our listeners out there, I just want to make mention that Casey is quasi freshly shaven and wearing a pink-ish shirt. I thought it was Easter when we came on the podcast. Salmon. He's looking abnormally suburban today in that junk coach. I'll even give a shout out to his business, The Junk Coach, not just any junk coach. When it comes to your junk, he'll coach you on it. The Junk Coach. He's looking very, very blue collar. I mean, salmon collar, I guess, technically speaking. So if you want a professional guy, and there's no promotion, there's no promo on his hat today. It is a
Not
blank
today.
hat, no meat
Look at that.
factory or let's go Brandon. It is straight blank. You know, we gotta get you as a Jobber hat. Jobber does promote and endorse our podcast, and I've been on their recent podcast, the Masters of Home Service podcast. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Episodes. Actually, they did a takeover episode here. What's that?
I actually reached out. I'm waiting to hear back from a podcast to see if they'd like to sponsor us. They're called the Junk Removal Podcast.
Wow.
And they have a bunch of ads that they pay for, and they don't do near as good as we do because they suck. So I emailed them like, hey, look, we can work together. Here's how. You come
That's
over to our
interesting.
side, and we'll handle it from there.
Well, you know, one of the things about our podcast, Jobber, I've been working with Jobber for like 7 years now. So I've always been a proponent for them. You know what? We are beholden to no one, right? We have had a couple opportunities with a couple people that were like, hey, we want to sponsor your podcast. Like, cool. What does that
They
look
want
like?
exclusivity.
Right. And or they want to tell us what we can't say. Let me tell you something. First Amendment, huge fan. Big fan. Jobber, they don't play that way. They're like, hey, Andy, you do junk removal and other things. Say nice things about us because you already use our product. And I'm like, yeah, that I can do. And I've been consulting and promoting Jobber for years. So when people want to get another operation software, like Casey, he used a different software. I didn't argue with him, right? I use Jobber and I love it. And if someone's like, I have this other thing and I love it, I'll be like, cool, try Jobber out. If it's better, cool. If not, don't use it. Also, Jobber puts their money where their mouth is. They brought me out to Nashville to record a couple episodes of their podcast, and I got to meet some really dope people in other spaces and other industries that also use podcasting to get smart and teach business owners how to business. So there is my no shit plug. So the Masters of Home Service podcast, check it out. There are some episodes. We're actually doing a takeover episode. We did that earlier with the Nazi and Wasted podcast, which is all about the recycling industry. So we're a big fan of cross-promoting other podcasts that have similar interests, not selling you marketing crap. We'll just leave it there.
Yeah, there's actually something really cool going on with Jobber right now. I actually just applied. It's for Jobber grants. They're offering a ton of grants. So go ahead and fill that out. Yeah, I just made the quote-unquote second phase, so I'm pretty excited. I filled out a lengthy interview process, and I think that I have a good chance. So we'll see.
Let the record show. Anyone that's been on the podcast, anybody can vouch for this, and Nick himself. Our show notes are pretty much like, hey, how do I say your last name? And then I hit record. Again, no holds barred. So, all right. So, Nick, actually, you know what? Let's lean into this because I know nothing about you. American River sounds cool. I do have some questions, so I'm going to fire. So, first off, you use Jobber? Have you been using Jobber? How long have you been using Jobber?
So I've been using Jobber for 4 months now. and it
How'd you
has
find
changed everything. I found out because of your company, your podcast. I've been listening since the beginning, and yeah, it actually was a game changer for me. One of the reasons why I'm on this podcast today was because of one of my posts about how I got off the truck this year. And one of the main reasons
Insert
for
clap
that
hand sound bit.
Thank you.
I did the sound bit. I clapped near the mic. That's the sound bit. That's our production level around here. I don't have a button. Also, hold on, for the record, hold that thought, Nick, because as you know with this podcast, we start somewhere and go another place. Almost every laugh track you hear on TV were recorded in the 40s and 50s. So if you're watching a TV show, a sitcom, and you're listening to a laugh track, those people are dead. Nick, please continue.
Yeah, so actually one of the things that I was preparing to talk about was just how Jobber affected my business. And for one, I had a lot of pain points in my business, scaling from one person, sole proprietor, all the way to LLC, 2 full-time W-2 employees, workers' comp, all the insurance and everything. And just the fact that Jobber was able to save me a lot of time in terms of automatic invoices. I had accounts receivable that I didn't have to input on my own, one-click text messages to clients on route, easy to use visual scheduling system. Also, an increase in professionalism for quoting commercial clients. It also just made it really easier to get 5-star reviews. So all in all, I think I paid for the full years like $2,400, and I did the math, which is also something that I potentially want to talk about is you guys like data-driven decisions, and it literally pays for itself right away. Even if you get like 2, it helps you. If you get 2 or 3 reviews a month, it pays for itself basically.
Yeah,
Nick, you literally just did all my sound. When I said we're going to talk about Jobber later, you already did those sound.
And we're done.
We're done. And Jobber, for the record, Jobber doesn't pay us outright. It is I work with them, and I have to get people on the juice, right? If people want to get on the Jobber juice, I'm all about that. I can help facilitate that, and that's it. Like that is the key, because what ends up happening is you get into business and you're like, hey, I don't even know where to start, and it's like, cool, here's a hammer. This is how you use it. This is what this end does. This is what that end does, right? Anybody can go to Depot and buy a hammer. It's like, well, how do you use it? And that's like with Jobber, right? It once you figure it out, you're golden. It's like, man, when you got all these other companies throwing crap your way, and you're like, you don't know which one's the best. So when you're like, hey, someone uses it and it's simple, that's awesome. So I love it. Great endorsement. And I've been using it so long. I remember I used to have an argument with Zell, who's our old operations guy. And he's like,
remember that dude?
Right. It was like $90 a month, I want to say. So it was like $3 a day. And this was back when I didn't have $3 a day to invest necessarily, right? Because we were running on the kitchen table at the time. And every day he's like, wasn't worth the $3 a day. And for the first like 2 weeks, he was like, not worth the $3 a day, because he was figuring out how to use the system, and it wasn't nearly as intuitive as is now. After about 2 weeks, he's like, I know. After like 2 weeks, he's like, all right, I guess this doesn't suck. And by the end of the month, he's like, we need Jobber swag because this is awesome. And that's it. Like, again, like look at you. You're like $2,400 when you're a sole proprietor to put down all on once on something that is theoretically an investment that may not pan out when you don't use the system right. Like that's a ballsy-ish move. And yet it paid out because it was like, hey, this is the tool, this is how to use it, and what are the immediate benefits? Productivity, professionalism, and reviews, which drives with efficiency. And again, I talk about numbers, and we're going to jump right back into numbers. When you are spending money in your business, it is going into one of 3 buckets every time. It is either an asset, tools and equipment, things that are going to reduce your cost in the future. It is an investment, things that you spend money on now with the expectation they're going to bring back home, friends, i.e. your time, or like invest in marketing, i.e. more customers, or an expense. And expenses are landfill fees, fuel, damage to customers' property, replacing broken tools, replacing tires, right? Because those expenses, once they're gone, you're back to whole on the day. Like the money is pissed out the back end of the tailpipe. So when you're thinking about spending money in your business, are you spending money on expenses, like a disposal, for example, or are you spending money on assets like additional equipment so that you can recycle more? And those are decisions you have to make. When you make good purchases from an assets perspective, reduces your overall expenses. When you make good investments like Jobber, you get back more of your time. And you get more customers with less of your work because you're now automating something that before you either weren't doing or you weren't doing efficiently. Let's talk about numbers because you know I love me some hillbilly math. I got my pen ready.
Real quick.
Oh, Casey's interrupting.
I have a question.
He has a question. Maybe it's the haircut. Is it the haircut, Casey? Or is it Casey?
I need a haircut, dude.
Oh, maybe it's the long hair. You look like an old white dude that plays golf.
Man, if I knew how to play golf, that's probably what I'd be doing right here on the beach or something. I was telling Taylor, I was like, fuck. No, I wish. It's 103. It's 101 here. It's supposed to be 104 by 4 o'clock. It
Sounds
sucks. I'd rather be in Florida.
Florida. I know. There you could be 104 with humidity. No big deal.
Yes, but there's an ocean to jump in. But my question is for Nick. So before we run into the numbers, this grant, do you know any specifics on it?
Yeah, I know there's a couple of different. Sorry, go on.
Well, just because in the beginning, a lot of new business owners immediately think that there's places that are begging to give away free money because you are starting your own business. The problem with that is there is none. Like the SBA, for instance, does not give away money for free. They do loans, but they don't say, oh, here's a grant for 10 grand to go start a business.
I can tell you that this is a straight up, they did this last year, and this year they have even more money. This is a straight up grant. This is a straight up, we have money to
That's
give
why
people
I want to know more
to
about
invest in their business.
This is interesting to me.
There's actually, I believe, a bunch of tiered levels, I believe, and you should check out the Jobber grants yourself, but I believe there's 2 top grants of $15,000 and then maybe a couple $7,500 and then a couple for like $2,500 and stuff like that.
There you go. I'm looking at that. So 2022, there was some recipients. Maybe we reach out to those guys. Renew Painting, Tree Wizard, BDA Comfort Heating and Cooling, and Home Roofs Lawn Care were some of them. So they did 25 grants last year. We got painting, we got we got a painting company, plumbing company, cleaning company. I do not see any Mosquito Man, Lefty's Handyman Service.
I wonder if you're competing with the entire service industry.
Well, you're competing with everybody that's a jobber person. Yeah, I do not see.
Yeah.
Now, a couple of these names don't necessarily tell me what they do. Most of them do. I do not see any junk removal. Organize Wise Professional. So that looks like a professional organizing company. Every other one I see here are like landscapers, wash wizards. That's an interesting one. I like that company name. You don't know what they wash, but they're wizards at it. There you go. So, and you know what? The people that got grants are smiling because, well, they got the monies.
Not free money.
Well, the thing is, and here's the deal. This is where I'll argue that you're right. It is free. However, you got to work for it. I won $10,000 at a pitch competition one time, and because I showed up and I knew my shit and I had a plan. Like one of the biggest things I was told with a pitch competition, and it's very similar to a grant, is you got to be very specific on the money you're asking for and what you're going to use it for and how it's going to benefit your business. If you're like, hey, give me $10,000, what are you going to spend it on? I don't know. Watch any episode of Shark Tank. That's one of the first questions. Why do you need the money? And then might something like, oh, I need mentorship. Or, no, we got to buy this piece of equipment. Oh, we got to invest in inventory. Those are always good answers. Often when they're like, oh, we got to hire a sales team, they're like, yeah, no. Like if you can't sell this product yourself, screw you. Like the sales team typically is not the answer because in that regard, right, it's not an asset. You're making an investment. An investment in people can be a really good play. However, often if you need a sales team to sell your thing, that means you don't have a proof of concept on sales. So that's a side note. All right. Good with the grants there. We just beat up and talked about Jobber for almost 15 minutes straight. God bless Jobber.
Well, honestly, it's an incredible piece of the puzzle for allowing me to get off the truck. And so my first hire was my brother. And granted, there is a lot more trust than an average person that you would have for your employee. So I kind of had a leg up.
Very biased.
Yeah. I mean, some brothers, maybe they don't have that, but mine, thankfully, is pretty great. What Jobber helped me do was it helped me get really organized on what the day would look like, so I could make sure and feel comfortable that he knew what to do, and I didn't have to check on him all the time. And it allowed me to trust him in a way, which is actually kind of hard for me to do. It was hard to let go because, as I'm sure most of us know, we do everything the best. At least
you ain't lying.
That's
you ain't
what
lying. Ask me.
Yeah.
Ask me. I'll tell you. I will tell you how awesome I am at certain things.
So yeah, it was great.
All right. Well, what's interesting there, and this is something as entrepreneurs we are, right? We are the visionaries. Often the ones that start the business, we're the visionaries. And we're like, hey, I built it. I can do it better than anybody. And it's absolutely true. And what ends up happening is there's an internal system. I wrote a book called Words Fucking Matter. We're full of plugs today. Go buy the book on Amazon. Hit the bestseller list within 24 hours. In the adult or in the education and adult learning and continuing education, bestseller, no big deal. Anyhow, so one of the things you're talking about, and I love bringing. I'm a huge fan of psychology and why we are the way we are. So this is what happens. Our internal system, right? There's a diagram. I'll put it up right now. It's not in my book. However, I reference it in my brain sometimes. Like, oh yeah, this is why I'm all fucked up today. And it's good because then you're like, oh, I can't remember if I got to press the screen button of the presentation, but we're about to find out if I press the right button. And what ends up happening is, and I'll describe this to the people listening. All right, I can't figure out how to share my screen. I'll figure this out. Hold on. Default. Taylor's coming in. He knows I'm all fucked up. Anyways, all right, what ends up happening is, I'm stopping it. All right, what ends up happening is we have ourself. That's the internal thing. And then when we have this fear that kicks in, right? That's when we fight, flight, or freeze. Also, what happens is we go to one of three default personas of ourselves. So the self that is good is clear, confident, curious, calm, all those things. Like, we're in the flow, you're like, yeah, I got this, right? Like when we do a podcast, we're like, yeah, I got this. We're three guys that talk junk removal, right? And then what ends up happening is when you get a stimulus that's not great, you either turn into a firefighter, a manager, or an exile, right? And so that's what people do. A lot of entrepreneurs, what I see, one of two things. I see typically they go into management mode, which, here's the definition: protectors of the system attempt to keep the person in control of every situation and relationship in order to protect them from the feeling of hurt or rejection. And that's what ends up happening. You're like, oh, I built the system. I know the system. Nobody can take care of my customers better than I. Screw you guys, right? Or I have a tendency to do the firefighter mode, right? You protect the system, but after the exiles are upset and they either smooth, I'm like, okay, go run it. I will wait for you to fail, and then I will jump in, right? Because I'm a hero. Like that's my default fighting position. And then the exiles, they're it's fucked up. They're like, yep, nope, let's walk away. Like they stay away from the problem. And so that's a very good point. When you hand off some level of control to this baby that you built, the boat that you built, and you're like, oh shit, it may sink. You have to be clear, confident, compassionate, creative, courageous, right? And also have clarity by telling them what the expectations are. So you're like, hey, brother, this is what we've done so far. This is what works. This is what I need you to operate at a high level. And then have tools in place like Jobber that say, hey, this is what time we arrive. This is how long it takes to do a job. So, for example, I do hillbilly math. We're going to get into the numbers because that's what I love. And one of the things I know is a standard household with trailer, it takes 2 hours for two guys to load. It is 4 man-hours for a standard one trailer job. That is the math of it. So that means a quarter trailer is a 30-minute job. That is from the time I park to the time I pull out. Now, I realize that if it's a bunch of furniture in the garage or in the driveway, it's going to take less time. And if it's a bunch of small items up in an attic or a garage, or like up in a garage attic, I should say, or down in a basement or an attic in the house or out in the shed, it'll take longer. And so when you build that into your plan, then you can communicate effectively with everybody instead of like Nick in his head is like, just like my brother and I, we're like, well, how long would it take me to do this job? An hour? Sounds good. I have to anticipate, like Gary Vee says, no one's going to work as hard as you in your own business. So it's not how fast can you do the job? And very early in my career, I had to realize however long it took my brother and I had to double that time. Because my brother and I were extremely financially motivated to get the job done quickly. Plus we had 10, 12 years combined experience at that point. So that knowing it and then setting up the system in and around Jobber is how you effectively clarify what the expectations are, which will reduce that anxiety in the manager mode or the exiler mode or the firefighter mode. There's your words fucking matter psychology nugget for the episode.
And the biggest thing, I will say this. So the reason I like when you just say, we are the best, that literally was what I told everybody. We're not the cheapest. We may not be the fastest, but we're the best. And what does the best mean? The best doesn't always mean the cheapest. It doesn't always mean the most expensive either. It means I'm going to get the job done in a timely fashion better than anyone else. Now, setting those standards in place, like you said, Andy, the standards are not meant to be easier for you. Standards are meant to be a baseline, others to start from. And the reason I like to stress this is because I'm dealing with this personally in my wife's business. We've reached a point, she's scaling. I'm proud of her. She's kicking ass, but it's time for her to start getting out of the truck, right? And the problem she's seeing is, well, I do A, B, and C better, so I don't know how I could have someone else do it the same. And my solution, like we all have heard this before, and in the beginning we don't like the answer, but my answer is teach them. Teach them the right way to do it. Teach them the standard, the baseline. Hey, this is the minimum. This is the standard. You can do better than this, then do it. But this is my minimum. So in this industry, as we all know, you have to have that standard in your business. And like you're saying there, Nick, when you're the best, you have to stay the best. And when you have that standard set, the hard part is staying that standard, right? It's keeping the standard. And now when the bar raises, you're like, oh shit, my baseline raised.
The other thing I wrote down, this is definitely a military thing. You as a leader and all the leaders of your organization, when someone does something below the standard and you don't do anything about it, you have now set a new standard of what is acceptable. So if someone shows up and they got tennis shoes on and not work boots, and you don't correct that behavior, you've now just told everybody in the organization the new standard is tennis shoes.
Yep.
As a leader, right? You don't have to be a firefighter that's like, oh, I told you so, blah, blah, blah. You have to, your job, and this is for all managers and leaders, and I'm glad your boys are going to be listening to this, and all these guys on the trucks are listening. The job of the leader is to set the standard with the vision and then maintain the standard. Eventually, when you get a true number two, who's going to be more of an integrator route, if you follow traction and the entrepreneurial operating system, the EOS, that integrator's job is to execute the vision of the CEO, the visionary's, perspective. So the visionary says, hey, this is the standard. The integrator's job is to maintain the standard. And so that is a job in and of itself. And now you can do it one of two ways. You can either manage people, wait for them to fuck up and then tell them what they did wrong, or you can lead them, which is show them the standard, reinforce the standard, live the standard, right? And then all ships rise with a rising tide. So when it comes to as you scale and grow and get farther away from the truck, the standard is what's going to keep your business afloat. And that's for everybody out there. Because you're right. You built this business. You have to say, okay, this is the accepted threshold of how we do business. Because there are some things as the owner that the guys will never be able to do as well as you. Because they are never you. They can never talk about the very first job. They can never talk about the vision of the organization because that's your job. Their job is not to set the culture. Their job is to maintain and influence the culture. Your job is to set the culture and say, this is what we do and do not accept within the boundaries of our organization. So that is your role moving forward, is to run a junk removal company, not junk removal jobs.
And that's actually something that has been difficult. And I've had to really think about how to handle situations, how to get ahead of the problem, how to react. It's definitely totally different than figuring out how to safely move a couch downstairs.
Yeah, moving a couch downstairs is extremely tactical. And in the business, you have to spend more time being strategic on the business. And the way you do that is to hire people and put in systems, right? Delegate, automate, eliminate. So what that means is either delegate it to someone within your organization where you also have the skill set to maintain the standard. Automate, put the system in place, like putting Nice Job in, which is an add-on feature with Jobber, where it solicit reviews for you. Or eliminate, If there's something really not a strength of yours, what you end up doing is hiring out a company to do that. Like if marketing is not a strength of yours or anybody else on your team, and you don't, and you're not comfortable doing it, and it's not good for your organization, then what you end up doing is hire out an entire company, delegate that entire portion of your business. I know a lot of guys that went through JRA. We hung out with the JRA guys last year in Raleigh, where Casey had the worst food of his life. If you listen to episodes, we don't need a reference. The barbecue that Raleigh has that Casey hated. Fried chicken was on point and grits, no big deal.
It's not barbecue; it's just meat with some random sauce on it. It cooks horribly.
Anyways, the JRA guys, like what they do is marketing, right? If they're like, hey, you want to launch a business, we will do the marketing part for you. They'll teach you maybe. They're not going to teach you how to pull a couch out of a basement because that's not what you're hiring them for, right? The actual junk removal thing, you ultimately have to do that. Casey and I came from the franchise world where we were part of a franchise that did basically nothing, right? They're like, hey, here's a logo, figure it the fuck out. Also, like 3 more of those franchises are failing. So I always like to keep people abreast of that situation and why I am very anti-franchise. Because if you're going to succeed or fail in this world, it should be on your own dime and your own time. That is my
Speaking
soapbox.
of, real quick, Nick, you'll appreciate this. So I had this conversation earlier today with another junk removal company. Here's why numbers matter. If everybody wants to either get on board or shit on the competition, you got to understand what the competition is doing. And I'll tell you this right now. Yes, I don't think junk removal should be franchised, but the top 3 franchises in the world, they do their numbers. And I mean religiously. Just because you want to be a franchisee does not actually mean you're going to. Yep. Even if you have all the money, you know what they're going to do? They're going to look at where you're at, and they're going to see the population. They're going to see the numbers of the population if it fits their criteria to have their name represented in that area. Yep. Now, why does that matter? Well, it's the same thing here. If you're not tracking your shit, then how do you expect to even ever be on that radar blip that they're doing? So just by Nick making this adjustment and saying, hey, it helps tracking my numbers a whole lot more. Well, that's because you aren't thinking about tomorrow. You're thinking about next year. You're thinking about 5 years from now. That's how you gauge where you're at, by statistics, data. And you can make decisions based on those. That's why Andy gets so freaking skitsy when it comes to numbers, because you can literally ask a question and get an answer strictly from numbers. You don't even have to use opinion at all.
Yeah, and what's actually really interesting, kind of an example that I worked out, was when making the decision moving from what I used first to haul, which was literally an old toy hauler, roughly like 14 cubic yards, had a fridge, a stove, and everything in it. People knew me as like that crazy guy for a while, but it was pretty cool. But that being said, when I looked at my numbers, I kind of approached it like a word problem in math back in high school, you know? And with word problems, what you start with is writing down the knowns. And I think where a lot of people could benefit in their business is recognizing that there are more known variables than what initially they come up with. Like, for example, a lot of the times they'll come up with just like are their cost per cubic yard, their average dump fees, stuff like that. But I got really in the weeds, and I went as far down as I have 10 ply tires and I'm getting 1 flat per week. You know, I have 1.9 loads per day. My Google ad spend, all the things. And then what I did after putting all these variables together, I would look at a potential solution. In this case, it was what type of dump truck I would get, or I actually even took Andy's route and put like a moving truck, like box trucks, in this like equation. And I basically just picked the solution that affected the most amount of numbers. And it was pretty surprising. Just literally what I didn't affect was how getting a bigger trailer and having bigger ply tires. Literally now I'm not filling them up every day and on the side of the road changing them. And it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I wrote a research paper 7 years ago, 6.5 years ago, or 7.5 years ago, that ended up being my business plan. And one of the things I did was, right, it was hillbilly math. If I double the size of my truck and I recycle half of the things I have, I will go to the landfill 25% less times than my competition, or how I would if I didn't put these solutions in place, right? Whatever that is. And if I know, to your point about tires, right? If I know 1 in 10 times I go to the landfill, I potentially have an issue, right? If I go to the landfill 10 times in a week, then once a week I'm going to do maintenance on my truck. If I put in these 2 solutions, I go to the landfill 10 times in a month. Now only once a month am I doing maintenance on my truck. And you're right. Yep. Those are the type of numbers that really do matter, because the hazards of getting a flat tire is catastrophic on your day, not in your business. Definitely catastrophic on your day. If you run an hour late to one customer, you're going to be an hour late the rest of the day.
And it also affects your potential reviews, your potential referral rate, which in terms, it changes absolutely everything.
Yeah. You know, we run a business, we're running on time. You know, and us being out in front of the customer is paramount. There's plenty of businesses where people come in the door and they're not even thinking about it. It's like, as long as you show up to work on time, you're good. Here with us, showing up on work on time for your employees, that's 10% of the battle. The other 90% of the time is making sure we get to all our customers on time.
So Nick, where you're at, how many landfills are roughly around you that you use?
3.
Okay.
Well, 2 landfills and a transfer station.
And what makes you decide which landfill to go to?
Proximity.
Okay, so the reason I ask that is because a lot of people that listen to this that I've talked to, and a lot of times they'll tell me they go to certain, especially in the DFW area. I know where all the trash places are, recycling centers, you name it. And I notice a lot of people will go out of their fucking way to save $20. Oh, yeah, this place over here is only $45 a ton. I'm like, yeah, but it's 45 minutes away. Yeah, but that place is $100 a ton. I'm like, no, I get it. But the fact that you're driving 45 minutes one way, spending the time over there, then 45 minutes back, how does that make sense? Andy said it best. This business runs on time. It's all about the timing, right? So when you factor the different locations in, yes, there's some that are going to be a pain in the ass. This place over here charges $120 a ton, whatever. But this place over here charges 60. My thing was, all my guys had, it was in the crew, the crew's room, the break room, whatever you want to call it. That's where all the guys had all their shit. We had a big ass map of our area, and we had marked all of the landfills and recycling centers, whatever. And then we drew a line, and it said, hey, look, if you're past this line, you go to these places. If you're past this line this way, you go to these places. It didn't matter what the price was, because in actuality, I need to know how fast your turnaround time is going to be. And as a business owner, when you start having crews out there, multiple, let's say you have 4 crews, how come one crew, they always spend so much time and they only did 2 jobs for the day? For some reason, it took them 8 to 9 hours to do these 2 jobs. But then you have another crew that bangs out 10 jobs, and you start looking at all the numbers. You're like, holy shit, this crew, they're just wasting my time and they're stealing from me, because they choose to go to the same place no matter where they are, because it gives them more windshield time, more downtime, or these other crews are trying to bang shit out the most efficient way. Now, does Jobber tracks your stuff? Can you make drop pins on Jobber or mark things in Jobber?
Yeah. You have drop pins. We have a landfill task on every day. So if guys do need to know where it is, most days we delete it because we don't take loads directly to landfill. However, when we route that ahead of time, we know if we're going to fill up or when we're near. And to your point, so for us, there's only 2 landfills and there's 2 transfer stations, same exact pricing. So it's real simple. It is which one's closer if we are going direct to landfill, because most of us, we're coming back to the shop to sort material. We do multi-trailer jobs. Sometimes we go direct to landfill because the entire truck is already pre-sorted. That makes sense. The other thing we do is with scrap yards. So with scrap yards, it is exactly that. We do that exercise all the time, which is because scrap prices, I can get double at some scrap yards what I get by the convenient one. Often it's like, whatever is the most convenient, that's the one we're going to. As much as I love recycling and scrap, it's not about the scrap price. It's about what's your time on target to the next job. So,
because you have to factor how much money you would be making if you were doing another job, which is way more than the cost.
Correct. There's 2 numbers to factor. A, how much is it costing you? When it's only you and you're not thinking about that much. One of the costs that you didn't bring up yet is, what is your cost to run your truck? And that is the fixed either lease or loan on the truck, plus maintenance throughout the year, right? Divided by a number of working days. I divide everything by 22.5. So it's that number, plus hourly wages for your guys, plus average number of miles, right? Divided by miles per gallon, multiple by price per gallon of fuel. So hillbilly math is, I say it costs me 50 cents a mile to drive my trucks, because fuel is about $4 a gallon. My trucks go about 8 miles a gallon, maybe more on a good day. Fully loaded diesel box trucks, man, if I'm getting 12 to 14 miles per gallon, I'm a happy man, you know? And then you factor in how many miles do you drive in a given hour throughout the day. We put about 100 miles a day on our trucks. That's the blended average, right? So if I put 100 miles a day on, that's $50 in fuel per day, 10-hour day. So I got $5 an hour on my fuel. I got $10 an hour on maintenance and payoff of my truck. Plus I got $50 in total wages. And wages are not only wages, it's workers' comp, it's your Social Security and Medicare, right? All in. So right there, I got $65 an hour to run my truck. And that's when everything is running smooth. So for $65 an hour, to Casey's example, right, if it's 45 minutes each way to a landfill, and there's another one 15 minutes away, that means you added an hour onto the day. Was that hour worth the $65 in hard costs? And how much can you make per hour? A good junk removal team can be doing $200 an hour. That is not even screaming. That is, hey, we're doing good. We're rocking and rolling. And again, $200 an hour is from when you punch in to when you punch out. So that's all the drive time to and from the first and last job. That's all your unload time. You know, I get it. You can go, you know, that's why I see these guys on Facebook and it drives me nuts. They're like, I made $500 in 30 minutes. It's like, cool. How long did it take you to drive there? What was your customer acquisition cost? What did you do with the material once you got it on your back? Right? It's like, yeah, you made it that $500 for that hour. It took you 4 hours though, start to finish, and another $30, $40 in customer acquisition. Those are the guys that are failing. All the people that are like, oh, I can get into junk removal. Those guys drive me nuts because they're not looking at it holistically. They're also not factoring having employees do stuff. They're only factoring themselves. And what you did, and you said on the top of the hour, you got off the truck. Here's one thing I'm going to tell you right now before I forget. I don't know that I've ever said this on this podcast. Casey knows about this. I do believe it is a slice report. SLICE. It is the reports that we use when we use our radio system. Right? We use Zello. It's a free app. Big fan of Zello. Shout out. No fucking promotion there. Just shout out Zello. Slice. Situation, location, impact, course of action, execution. We use slice reports. All I want to know about is 3 things: time, location, volume. You'll get guys that'll call from the field and they're telling you, oh, little old lady did this and she added this room and the cat piss everywhere and we had to park a half a block down and man, just tell me in a slice report. Situation, this is what's going on. Location, this is where I'm currently at. And or this is where I need to go to next. Right? Impact, I'm running late. I'm running ahead of schedule. I'm going to be out of space, i.e. volume. Course of action, this is what needs to happen. Execution, who's going to do it? Because once you start running other trucks, you might get truck to truck where they're going to start figuring some shit out. One guy might call up and be like, hey, I'm running a space on this job. Another guy would be like, oh yeah, my half trailer was only a quarter trailer, so I can come by and pick up 2 appliances. If I pick up 2-3 appliances off your job, will that allow you to finish? Yes, it will. Make mission go fishing. So that's one of the things I want to stress to you and all the other listeners. Combat effective communication in real time. Once you start getting employees, you will find out quick, fast, in a hurry who wants to sit there and tell you all the warm and fuzzy, non-critical information of the job. Situation, location, impact, course of action, execution. And the 3 numbers to factor is your time, your location, and the volume. Right, and then you get into type of product and going up the stairs and all that other shit. The fact is, when you got to move trucks, time, location, and volume. All right, what math did you want to talk about? Or is it the math you wanted to talk about? I want to talk math. I could spend the rest of the episode talking about math.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so something that was really interesting was, let me pull it up. Just when I was doing the math, I had let's just say 20 working days, and I have all these spreadsheets to show this. I'm just kind of averaging them out to make it easier to follow. So I had 20 working days, and I was going to the dump an average of 1.9 times a day. with an average dump cost of $120. So that equates roughly
$200 a day,
$4,500 a month in dump fees and total cost. Gas, mileage, or diesel. Yep. So when I did the math of and this is 2 guys in the truck. Sorry.
Yep.
So when I changed some of the variables, and on average, I realized when I can make it work where I only have one guy on the truck to do this task, while one other guy's like passing out door hangers or something, and then he picks them up on the way. It goes 20 working days, and I only had to go 1.2 times per day because I had now a 22 cubic yard trailer. My average dump cost was $138, or I don't remember where I got 138, but basically, my new monthly cost was less than what I was paying before because of a few factors that I took into account. So when you take into account that my brand new Diamond C 22 cubic yard trailer with the built-up walls only cost me $300 a month because I'm smart and I'm financing it. It's literally making me money. Spending money is making me money.
Correct. Correct.
In so many more ways than just that too.
No, because you bought an asset, right? And so more loads you do, and the fact that it dumps, and the fact that it's 8 cubic yards larger, less trips, and the challenge with a lot of landfills is it is the fixed expense. This is where people get hung up. As you scale, you start to get fixed expenses. When it's you in a pickup truck, everything's a variable expense. It's your time, fuel, disposal, right? It's all variable expense. When you're scaling your business, you end up having fixed expenses. No shit insurance, possibly a rent or a yard or something, right? Things that they are the exact same every month. A cell phone plan that isn't your own personal phone. And then you start looking at jobs as fixed expenses, things that you cannot change, right? If it's a half an hour away job, I cannot make that half an hour faster. If I walk into the landfill, what is it? So you're saying it's 120 a ton, or you're saying it was 120 per average load. So there's probably some fixed rate, right? Fuel fee, variable, fixed rate just to drive in, plus a variable rate based on the amount of tonnage.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
I had average dump cost, the labor and diesel prices and wear and tear. Yeah. So that's where I got that number.
The 120 per.
Times frequency times number of days.
Yeah, correct. That's all it. So 120 isn't the end of the world. I do see you did send me your kind of high level overview. So he sent me like a 2.5 page. This is who we are and what we do. Right? How do we answer phones? How do we get reviews? How do we Google? How do we hire? This is a bare bones minimum.
Pretty much put it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. This is a bare bones minimum job, just business plan that I would argue most people have not gone through this exercise. And bare bones, I mean that in a beautiful way. It's 2.5 pages. You can hand this to an employee and they can, within 15 minutes, be like, oh, I understand our business. This is not a 60-page charts, graphs, fucking dissertation, right? That people are going to, this is, I'm reading this, I'm like, I get to the bottom. If I was a banker and I saw this, I'd be like, oh, this guy knows his shit. Got it. Right? And then I would ask for, something.
A manager, Nick?
What was that?
You have a manager?
No, it's me. I'm training my brother to do that, and he has potential. So just slowly.
This is a must study for a manager.
Yeah. He needs to know this, and he needs to add 2 pages onto this, right? Which is yours. This is all vision. So what we're looking at here is like, hey, we're gonna have the importance of a good website, right? The importance of every aspect you can reasonably can for your business, right? Here are the other things. How Jobber affects my business is a whole category. Now you need someone to say, okay, this is what we're going to do, right? You'll have a mission and vision statement, focus on the why, and then ultimately your brother or whomever it is has to figure out how are we going to get this. So one of your things is 100 plus reviews, all 5-star in the first year. Okay. Is that what you have right now, or is that what you're striving for?
That's what we had. That was in the past.
Gotcha.
We're at like 140 or something.
Okay, so where do you want to be by the end of the year?
200.
What's the number? 200. It's your manager's job to figure out how we're going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You as the owner have to start focusing on the what and the why, and empower the guys in the field to figure out how you're going to do it. Right?
No, thank you for that, because I'm not currently thinking that way. I'm thinking of how to do it and to get them to do it, rather than how to have him empower him to solve the problem himself, which he is very capable of doing.
Okay, so here's a tidbit, and this is for you and our listeners. Here's the 4-phase process. This is what you do. You tell them, this is what I want done. That's phase 1. Set the expectation. Phase 2, you give him a reasonable amount of time for him to come back and give you a plan how he's going to execute on that. Right? So you give, he takes. Now he gives and you take. You take in that information. This is his plan. Third thing you're going to do, you're going to review the plan and then get the resources. Right? So this is where you can poke holes in the plan. And then you can ask him, what support do you need from me? He might be like, hey, I need a $300 budget because I'm going to do this thing to the trailer. Right? 4th phase is you supply him the necessary tools, equipment, resources that are pre-agreed upon, and he goes out and executes. And then
I like that.
And then you go back to the what. Did we, right? And this is all wrapped around a SMART goal. So a SMART goal, singular, measurable, obtainable, relevant, time-bound. Your job, you can set the expectation of the SMART goal. This one needs to happen. Measurable, yes or no. 204 here in this case, let's look at your reviews. Okay, SMART goal. 200 reviews. What platform are you going to do it on? Is that Google?
Yeah, that's specifically Google.
Okay. Specifically Google. See, you are using the right word. Specifically Google, right? Measurable, 200 reviews. Obtainable. Well, you got 100 the first year. I'd say another 100 is obtainable. You're at 140 and you're 6 months in, right? So you're behind the bell curve. You're behind the lead line. You got to pick up the dang old pace, right? That's fine. Relevant, you damn right. More Google reviews, more SEO, more nice things, more shit to post on Facebook. Time bound, December 31. And now you can hand that to him. Say, hey, here's the goal. How are you going to execute? And then you have to do this magical thing.
One crew too. Remember that. It's one truck.
One crew. I got you. That's obtainable.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing. Here's this magical thing that as entrepreneurs we struggle with. Once you hand that to him and ask him how is he going to do it, you got to practice this magical thing called shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Because when you tell him what to do and how to do it, you're not getting his buy-in. You're not getting his perspective. He might have a great idea that he's never come to you with, right? Mm-hmm. And if he comes to you with a terrible idea, your job is to poke holes in it. Well, have you thought about this? Ask questions, don't demand. If he's like, well, I'm going to just go on Google and create 50 new email accounts and review us every day to get us another 60 reviews. It's like, okay, sounds great. However, how does that help our business, right? How is that part of being an integrity-based organization or whatever? Fun fact, that's one of the recommendations we were told early in our business when we were part of a franchise, was to have people that have never used our services give us a bunch of reviews to get us a head start. Not a huge fan.
Which is reportable too, in violation of Google My Business, and you could lose your potentially one of your biggest lead generators.
100%. I also found that out recently with my book. If they see, because I have reviews on Amazon now for my book, if they see what looks like family and friends reviewing your book for you, you can get pulled from Amazon. Uh-huh. That is this is because there's plenty of people that did it in the past when the internet was young. And that's how they get a leg up on the competition. It's like, well, that's a unethical bullshit way of getting where you want to go in life. So in that example, you go to him and say, okay, hey, what is it? Or, not what you told him what, how is it we're going to make this happen? Right. How does that happen? And then see what ideas he came up with. Now, if you listen to the Trash Talk Business Podcast, you probably got 3 or 4 ideas of how we do it, right? Use Nice Job, use a thank you card with a QR code, follow up with an email. Hell, you can even send them a personalized fucking email from you or a phone call from you. I mean, there's a lot of different ideas. He might come up with something that's already on the list, and you're like, all right, cool. And it's his idea, right? Now, you might have already vetted it and say it's probably going to work. Moreover, it's his idea. When people have a tendency to support what they create. When they create that idea, they're going to support it because you're getting buy-in and not compliance. Also, you as a leader, when you can trust them with the small things, you'll learn to trust them with the big things. You can't just trust them day one with the biggest thing. So you have to, as a leader, slowly hand things off to the members of the organization so that you grow slow and organic.
I also used to ask what they wanted. So, this is a conversation for another time, but I would do 1-ups and 1-downs, right? Those are the kind of meetings we would have. I'd have a meeting with my ops manager. That's 1 down. I'd have a meeting with my stepdad, who was pretty much just the money man, right? Like the owner. We were part owners in the beginning, but he didn't deal with anything operation. So then I would have my operations manager have a meeting with the team lead, right? And everything, the reason why it's so important is because there's a difference in having a meeting with the team lead and the investor, right? If Brian, my stepdad at the time, was just pretty much the investor, if he sat down with the team lead's going to feel very intimidated, very, very out of place.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, Brian's going to feel like, well, is anything I'm saying being retained by this guy? Because who knows where he's at? Does he want to be here in a few months? Blah, blah, blah. So having someone like the ops manager talk to the team leads by themselves is different than having you or whatever. Point is, when we would have these meetings, I always ask my ops manager, what do you want? Do you want more money? Do you want more responsibility? Do you want more days off? Whatever. And it's very important you ask that because, for one, a lot of times in the workplace, you don't really get to speak your mind or express what you actually want, right? Like, hey, I would actually love to be in charge of this, or I'd actually love to have more days off. You'd be surprised how many times the answer wasn't money. It was actually, I'd rather, hey, I'd want to be in charge of the trucks. I'd want to be the first person here, whatever. You ask these people what they want, and then you say, okay, cool. How can I make sure that what you want fits what I want? Now, on the other hand, and I'm dealing with this right now, there's a guy and his best friend, brother in the military, have a business together. Now that friend, who's not the owner, he wants to do other things. The owner has always told this friend, hey, one day we're both going to own this. You're going to, blah, blah, blah. Problem is he's not the owner. And now he feels burdened to tell the owner, aka his best friend, hey, I'm not in it anymore, man. Like, I'm ready to bounce. No offense. I'm done. The problem with that is he was never upfront with the owner, with his friend. He was never in the beginning. He never told him, hey, I don't know if I want this like you want it. So now he's stuck losing his operations manager and his best friend in the business. Obviously, they're going to be friends after, but that's why it's always important to be transparent, especially when you have these guys coming on. Because if you're not, you get blindsided or you expect too much out of someone who may not be on the same page as you. Which is okay, as long as you know that. Mm-hmm. I mean, Andy and his brother worked together for a while, and then one day they didn't.
Yeah,
right.
We got out of that.
I'm sure at one point they thought they were going to take on the world together. At some point, maybe.
Yep.
But
and you got to be abreast of what's changing, right? Everyone's definition of success is different, right? I'm a huge proponent for this country and the republic that we have, and right, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Life and liberty have very clear and defined definitions. Pursuit of happiness, that is as subjective as the day is long. Everybody has an opportunity to say, this is what my pursuit of happiness looks like. Mm-hmm. And you'll only figure that out when you allow people to pursue their own happiness.
Yeah, I actually just started my first employee reviews, and it was incredibly fruitful. Just simply a real quick, tangible, awesome thing that we found out was, hey, X person likes to sweep, Y person doesn't. Switch roles. You're both now happier.
It is amazing how simple things like that don't get talked about until they get talked about. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like most guys, you put two guys together, you're right. One guy might just hate doing something so much, the other guy hates it slightly less. And it's like, all right, well, we're still trending in the right direction. I got one of my guys who hates driving. He's like one of our top guys. If I put him with someone where he doesn't have to drive, he's fucking chill. He's never in an accident. He's one of our best drivers. He just doesn't like doing it.
Yeah.
And so you got to understand that and respect it. And I recommend quarterly reviews with all your guys. I recommend having a a process that is systematic and thorough. We use a 5-point system across 6 different disciplines. And so our review is really simple. It is
every person
attitude,
or just like a certain position in a
every person in the organization gets the same review. Now the conversation is different, the narrative is different, the form is the same. Yeah. So the 6 points that we look at are attitude, ability, adaptability, character, competence, camaraderie. And when I look at our employees through that lens, when they're doing something that's really, really good, a great behavior, or they're doing something that's not so good, not good behavior, I can look at one of those 6 things and say, yep, here's the issue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, for example, someone shows up late to work, that's a character issue, right? It's within you, whether or not you find it important to show up to work every day on time. It has nothing to do with your ability or your adaptability. It has everything to do with your character, whether or not being on time is important to you. Same thing. You have some guys that can run, you know, they're perfect, and then as soon as one wrinkle happens in their schedule or a half trailer turns into a full trailer, they lose their shit, right? Because adaptability is different than ability. Someone that can bang a job is not the same person that can adjust under fire.
No. And I'll tell you right now, the greatest workers don't always make the greatest leaders.
No, not at all. Yeah. And if with our 6-point system, camaraderie is importantly at the end, because it's real simple. Mm-hmm. I've yet to see an employee get high marks across the board and then low camaraderie, or vice versa. Get low marks across the board and then high camaraderie. If you are not those 5 things, if you don't have a good attitude, ability, adaptability, character, and competence in your job, people will not want to work with you. And you'll probably
know what happens when they don't. Yeah, and when they don't want to work with you, guess what? It may take a week. After that, everyone's going to know.
Yep.
Hey, we don't like that person. And they may not tell the owner, but you're going to see a morale change and a productivity change. And you're like, all right, guys, what the fuck is up?
I listen for guys bitching in the hallways, right? Proverbial hallways in the warehouse. If I hear the same couple guys bitch about working with the same person, I'll move that guy around. I'll put him with somebody. And we have one guy, this guy, Jerome. He'll tell it to me straight. Jerome can work with most people. If the employee can't work with Jerome, that is the lower than the bar standard, right? Because Jerome is chill. Like, I got one of my guys on my crew, Ian. Like, Ian generally has the lowest bar for bullshit, right? If you show up late or you're not ready to work or you're not competent in your job, like, I don't put new guys with Ian because he's a non-trained individual. And we did, like, 2 weeks ago, put a couple new guys with him, and did not work out well for anybody in the organization.
Hey, he's needed in his spot, in his position. He is good.
Yeah, correct. Ian is a non-trained. Now, you need someone to go bang $3,000 a day in jobs. Give Ian 2 competent guys and 2 trucks, or 1 truck, and not even 2 trucks, 1 truck. He'll put his head down and go. You need a 27 trailer job done in 3 days. Give Ian 500 buckets, 4 trucks, 6 guys, done. No questions asked. You want someone trained? Don't give it to Ian.
Nope. But that's also, and it's funny because this is so important when you build your business, right? Because obviously as a business owner, especially in this phase, when you're growing, you're like, man, I have high hopes for you. But the problem is you have to be careful because you can leave yourself open to not just disappointment, but to a complete fuck up. As in, you could put so much pressure on one of these people without even knowing it. But when they finally get the balls to tell you, hey, this isn't what I want, and I'm leaving soon, you'll get so blindsided that you're going to think, oh my God, this guy, he lied to me, broke my heart, blah, blah, blah. But it was your fault because you never asked, is this what you want? Now, at the same time, when I said, hey, the best workers don't make the best leaders, it's true, because how many times are you on a job and you have this guy, you said, man, this guy gets shit done, he puts his head down. The problem is, put them in a leadership position. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to revert right back to what they know. I'm going to go put my head down and work. I don't know what's going on around me. Those guys that I'm in charge of, they're probably pissing in bottles and smoking cigarettes. But I'm getting this work. That's not a good leader. I need a leader to lead and make the other guys do what their job is. And that's the mistake I've made a couple times. The wrong people, the wrong spots.
Yep. Right. We got right feet in the right seats. Right. You got to go to a school bus. You as the owner get to decide Are you allowed on this bus? And are the right cheeks in the right seats? And one of the ways you decide and figure out the right cheeks are in the right seats is you ask your guys. Data-driven decisions. Ask them. People's perspective and their answer, it is a data point. And it's an important data point that you have to solicit. The review you're having, remember, that review is for the employee. I remind my guys all the time. They look forward to their reviews because it's an opportunity for them to talk about what they want out of their career. And as the employer, it's up to us to figure out, does this fit within our organization and where does it fit so that they're in the right seat? And also keep them honest. I got one of my guys a couple years ago was like, I want to take more leadership roles. Cool. We gave him a couple small leadership opportunities and didn't even do it. Like, didn't follow through. So it wasn't even that he failed at it. He didn't even do it. So it's like, all right, cool. Next time he talks to me about leadership, I would say, hey, remember those 3 or 4 little things we gave you? Those didn't happen. Right? You give them the grace to figure it out. You coach and you coach them up through it all. Like, hey, man, this is what you said you wanted. Do you really want that or not? Most guys would be like, nah, I thought I did. Yeah. And now that I had it, I'm good. And those are just adult conversations.
They are, man. Hell, Pelton. I always talk about Pelton. Prime example, man. He got paid he reached his cap of an hourly employee. After 2 years, I was like, Kelton, I'm no longer going to pay you hourly. I want to bump you up to salary and move you into a team lead position. And he did not want it. He wanted the money, did not want the responsibility that associated with the salary. And I even explained to him, Kelton, the salary means you get paid. Even when there's no jobs, like worst case scenario, you're still getting paid. He passed it. He passed on it because it came with more responsibility.
Yep.
So you can't argue with someone like that. You have to just tell them the truth. And my truth was, okay, well, going forward, just to let you know, you're not getting paid anymore because I'm not going to be paying at the time. I'm not going to be paying $20 an hour for a driver who's been here over 2 years. I'd rather put you on salary and get more out of you.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, ask your guys. I mean, when you get to that point, ask people around you, ask your customers. This is why it's so important. This is why the left won the damn election. They cheated because they asked everybody and everybody told them the wrong answer. So they get some buffoon in the White House. And, if you can't win fair, you just got to steal things, I guess.
There we go. We got past the 1 hour mark in case it gets political. All right.
Not to get political.
Oh, yeah. You are with your salmon color shirt. We already got political. We covered Jobber. We covered the Masters of Home Service podcast. Nick, what else do you want to cover before? This is a good show.
Yeah. One of the things that I was actually surprised about was how often clients tell me, oh my gosh, you're the first person to answer the phone. And I'm like, how many people have you called? They're like 6 people. And
shit, I want to be in your market.
It's crazy.
I never hear that.
No, and literally my number one Google Ads converting ad is American Raver Junk Removal. We answer the phone. It's like insane. Like
low bar to entry in that market. I do want to know this because where are you? I was on the Sonoma Hauling live podcast like 2 weeks ago. Where are you compared to those cats in California?
Honestly, I'm in Sacramento. I think they're close by, like Napa or something like that.
Yeah, I've been in Stockton, and
yeah, I'm north of
Sacramento.
Stockton.
Yeah, Sacramento. Yeah, Casey's been there. Turns out, Casey, I don't know if you knew this. I found out recently. Casey and I did a job in Stockton a couple of years back. Not a great area, not a great place. I will say, those breakfast tacos we had, and that's when we had those oysters in a food truck. Never had oysters from a food truck. They were delicious, and they were cheap as hell.
Also, Stockton, though unionized, is very pro-Trump.
Really? Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right. The backwoods of Stockton, yeah. You're right. Very pro-Trump. We went to a restaurant in the middle of nowhere. Casey almost got his tires and or his throat slit. Nicest people. Not a great meal. Of course, I wasn't going to say that to the lady's face on the account of guns and Trump stickers they had throughout the
I remember
restaurant.
That place.
Yeah.
Down a random creepy ass road.
Oh my God. Super random, super creepy. Food was not great. And they're like, how was it? I was like, it was delicious. They're not going to find our body out here. That was the issue.
Going back really quick, reeling us in, something that people don't even realize is just how much Google ranks where you show up based on whether you answer the phone or not. They send you an email saying, this is how well you did in answering the phone. And guess what? If you're 20%, you're not going to be ranking high, which means you're going to be losing those free opportunities to get leads. And then you're going to have to resort to some other method. And it's a complete missed opportunity. And it really bums me out to see a bunch of other people doing it in areas that aren't my own backyard. But yeah, it's crazy. There's so much low-hanging fruit in this industry that all it takes is a little bit of competency, some questions, some consulting, and you'll literally just be crushing it.
Well,
and a thumb.
To
answer the phone.
Yeah.
All right, let's go around the horn. We'll start with you, Casey, and then go to Nick. Casey, top takeaway from today.
Man, top takeaways. I mean, this episode had it had a few different points with elaboration on every single one of them. But I would have to say top takeaway is, look, if you don't have a software management system like Jobber, look into it, because obviously it's more than just keeping jobs scheduled. It's not just a calendar. It actually has some analytics involved, which sounds really, really damn cool. Apparently now they have grants. So if you're out there looking for money and you're afraid to go make your own, Jobber's the place to look for in the beginning. The other takeaway is, ask questions to your customers, ask questions to your employees, and track what everybody's good at, and make a huge solution out of everybody's pieces, I guess you could say. Their strengths, put them all together and say, hey, how can we boost this business using everybody's strengths, right? Obviously, we're not going to talk about weaknesses. It's against Andy's book and language, but the fact is everybody's good at something. How can you expose it in the benefit of your business? I guess that's my takeaway.
I like it. Nick, top takeaway?
Definitely slice. Efficient, making like a soft kind of thing more efficient as opposed to like the hard, easy like numbers and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, doing what it comes down to is we're getting to the facts, Jack. And the Slice report, I don't know how much Casey was listening in. It is a direct, not direct plagiarism. It started with a salute report, which is in the Army, which is size, activity, location, uniform, time, and what is E? Equipment, time and equipment. Pretty old school, but basically if you're looking at troop movements or troops in the field, what are they, who are they, what are they doing, right? That is a, well, the weather was 73 with a slight breeze, and there was these guys out there in a field, and no, get to it. Size, activity, location, uniform, time, and equipment. And so that's what we did with the Slice report. Obviously, we're not looking for fucking Victor Charlie out there in the wood line, so we kept it a little bit simpler. My top takeaway, and I've heard this a few times before, first time I've heard it on the air, though, is the fact that not only are you, the business owner, listening, your guys are listening. And that, to me, is extremely important, knowing who our listenership is, because we want to make sure we're speaking to everybody in the junk removal industry. We know that a lot of our listeners are owner-operators. However, this is a great opportunity for you, the business owner, to delegate, or really not even delegate, eliminate your own training program. You can have the guys listen to this episode and every episode, and then afterwards say, hey, guys, what were your top 3 takeaways, and what are we going to do about it? Yeah. Now, if they all listen to 1 hour and they all took away one different takeaway, right? You get 3 guys. Hey, top takeaways, and what are we going to do about it? You're not going to say, if there was 50 good nuggets in a given episode, you're not putting 50 things in next week and going to succeed at them. If you have 3 guys putting one thing in new a week, it's 150 new initiatives every year with ease. Yeah. And that can be as simple as, hey, we back our trucks in now. Hey, we put a QR code on our thank you cards, right? One new initiative a week that they own. And that's the key. What you said, I kind of build off of what you said, or Casey said, rather. It was have the guys own the solution. So give them all the information you have. And here, instead of you listening to a whole episode and regurgitating 10 minutes, be like, hey, guys, I know you got an hour a week. You're sitting in the truck. I want you all to listen to this and come back with a takeaway. It ain't got to be a full book report. Just a quick check on learning. What are you going to do about it? And meaningful action. It's not memorization and regurgitation. It's what are you going to do different? What actions and activities are going to be different this week?
And it's also useful when I was in the truck. It was just expressing that it's important to always be learning. It shows where I am in terms of I don't know everything. I'm always learning. I'm hungry. And I hope that trickles down. It just sets the culture of what I want the business to be and what I expect in a number two and so forth.
Yeah, I like it. All right. Well, we covered it all. Another episode of the Trash Talk Business Podcast. I'm Andy. He's Casey. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.